and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja, and these are the headlines. In Afghanistan, gunmen have killed 10 workers of an international landmine clearing charity and injured 16 others in northern Bulletin province. The Interior Ministry has accused the Taliban of carrying out the attacks, but the group has denied any involvement. Meanwhile, the Taliban claim to have seized the Chahe-Ab district of Takhar province, causing heavy casualties to the military. Syrian army's air defenses have intercepted an Israeli missile strike over the capital, Damascus. Syria's state media says the Israeli army launched the attack from over the Lebanese territory, targeting the central and southern regions. It said the strike caused only material damage. China has slammed the U.S. bill passed by its Senate to counter Beijing's technological advancement. In a statement, China's parliament opposed the measure, saying it displayed a Cold War mentality. It said the bill smeared China's domestic and foreign policies and is an interference in its internal affairs. Pakistan has reached the landmark figure of administering 10 million COVID-19 vaccine doses. The country has registered 77 new deaths and just over 1,100 new infections in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, in India, the COVID-19 has claimed over 2,200 more lives while infecting more than 92,000 overnight. Globally, more than 3.7 million people have died from the virus and over 173 million have been infected so far. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. In Afghanistan's northern Bulletin province, gunmen have killed 10 workers of an international landmine clearing charity and injured 16 others.
The Interior Ministry has accused the Taliban of carrying out the attack in the Bulletin-e-Markazi district of the province. However, the group has condemned the attack, denying any involvement. Earlier, the Taliban claimed to have shot down a military helicopter in Medan Vardak province, killing all on board. The Defense Ministry cited technical issues as the reason behind the helicopter crash, saying 3 crew members have been killed and 1 other wounded. The Taliban also claimed to have conquered the Chahe-Ab district of Takhar province, causing heavy casualties to the military. The Taliban spokesman added they've attacked Afghan forces in Khost province, leaving 25 security personnel dead. The government did not comment on the Taliban's claim.
Syrian army's air defenses have intercepted an Israeli missile strike over the capital, Damascus. State media says the Israeli army launched the attack from over the Lebanese territory. It said the strike caused only material damage. Some Syrian state media outlets said the strikes hit Homs province near Lebanon. The Israeli military has not commented on the matter so far. Israeli forces have arrested 12 Palestinians and shot 3 others across the occupied West Bank. One of the wounded in Tabas city sustained life-threatening injuries. The Safa village council said Israeli forces raided various areas, smashed doors, and ransacking houses. Earlier, Israeli soldiers bulldozed large areas of Palestinians' agricultural lands near the Nablus city to expand an illegal colony. Protests erupted after several army jeeps invaded the area and ransacked homes. Israeli troops fired a barrage of live rounds, rubber-coated bullets, and tear bombs gas at the protesters in the city. China has slammed the U.S. bill passed by the Senate to counter Beijing's technological advancement. This comes after the U.S. Senate approved legislation to boost Washington's ability to compete with Beijing. In a statement, China's parliament opposed the measure, saying it displayed a Cold War mentality. It said the bill smeared China's domestic and foreign policies and is an interference in its internal affairs. Earlier, the 100-member U.S. Senate voted 68 to 32 to pass the legislation. It prohibits the download of social media app TikTok and blocks the purchase of China-manufactured drones. The bill must now pass House of Representatives before being signed into law by President Joe Biden. U.S. President Joe Biden has extended sanctions against Belarus by another year. The curbs target 10 Belarusian officials and bar Americans from engaging in any transactions with them. The White House says Belarus's actions pose an extraordinary threat to U.S. national security and foreign policy. Biden slammed Minsk for committing human rights abuses and engaging in public corruption. He said such actions undermine democratic processes and institutions. Meanwhile, President Alexander Lukashenko has signed into law prison sentences for those who protest or insult state officials. In India, the COVID-19 has claimed over 2,200 more lives while infecting more than 92,000 in the past 24 hours. Globally, more than 3.7 million people have died from the virus and over 173 million have been infected so far. More in this report.
As the developing nations struggle to fund COVID-19 inoculations, the World Bank has ruled out support for waiving intellectual property rights for COVID-19 vaccines to help reduce the cost of fighting the pandemic. This comes as World Trade Organization member nations are taking up a proposal to ease patent protections for vaccines. In the U.S., authorities are scrambling to extend the shelf life of Johnson & Johnson's vaccine as millions of unused surplus doses approach expiration. The country has also eased travel recommendations for more than 110 countries and territories, including Japan, just ahead of the Olympics. In Mexico, students in capital Mexico City returned to school as COVID-19 cases and deaths dip to lowest levels in over a year.
It is a challenge. We have to re-educate our children who used to hug each other and share everything, even food. Today, they cannot share their pencils, their notebook. They cannot give their classmates even a taste of their sandwiches. We all have to learn that this is a new normality. Things have changed.
Uruguay has released data on the impact of Sinovac vaccine that showed it was more than 90% effective. Over in the UK, the number of COVID-19 cases in the past week has increased by 60% as compared to the previous week. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has called on the world to learn from the corona crisis to work in a more sustainable manner.
Das verlangt, dass wir schon jetzt
This requires us thinking about life after Corona, moving out of Corona crisis sustainably, as they call it. This means that we must not content ourselves with somehow returning to pre-Corona situation. We must do everything by using economic and social recovery to live and work more innovatively, more digitally, more resiliently, more environment-friendly, and in short, more sustainably.
Meanwhile, South Africa has put its health minister on special leave over alleged links to a corruption scandal involving coronavirus funding. In African countries, thousands of vaccine doses have been destroyed as they exceeded expiry dates amid lack of medical infrastructure.
Welcome back. The Royal Saudi Land Forces have launched a joint exercise with U.S. forces in Saudi Arabia's northwestern region. In a statement, the Saudi Defense Ministry said the Falcon Claw 4 drills aims to strengthen mutual military relations between the two countries. They said the exercises will unify military concepts through joint action between the forces of both states. The exercises also aim to exchange military information and experiences, improve compatibility between military equipment and doctrines. The United States says Iran's non-cooperation with UN nuclear watchdog will jeopardize the 2015 nuclear deal revival talks underway in Vienna. In a statement, the agency's Board of Governors, Washington urged Iran to let the watchdog continue its monitoring activities unhindered. Meanwhile, diplomats said a number of outstanding issues continue delaying U.S. return to the JCPOA and Tehran's full compliance. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said sanctions on Iran may remain in place even if the deal is revived. Testifying before a Senate committee, Blinken also said that Iran needs to change its behavior. Moreover, the potential change of Iranian leadership after the 18th of June presidential elections are also expected to present challenges to the talks. However, an Iranian presidential spokesperson has declared that Tehran's nuclear talks policy won't change after the vote. Iran says the peace process in war-torn countries must be owned by their people without external imposition. Foreign Minister Javad Zarif made these remarks after his meeting with UN special representatives on Afghanistan and Yemen. In a tweet, Zarif said that he held fruitful talks with Jean Arnault and Martin Griffiths. He said Tehran seeks peace and stability in the region and is ready to facilitate it. Zarif said that the crisis in Yemen can only be resolved through a diplomatic approach. The U.S. says the situation in military-ruled Myanmar is concerning and continues to worsen. At a virtual event, Joe Biden's policy coordinator Kurt Campbell said Washington is looking at all possible scenarios. He said the White House does not only see challenges from ethnic insurgencies, but they also see much more organized and determined opposition on the Democratic side. Campbell said the U.S. privately backs the efforts of ASEAN for a return to democracy. Meanwhile, the anti-junta protests continue in Mandalay, Dawi, Kachin, and Myaying regions. Rights groups say that security forces have killed 857 people so far. Beijing has criticized Japan and Australia for playing up the China threat and smearing it maliciously. In a press briefing, a foreign ministry spokesperson urged all sides to stop interfering in China's internal affairs. Wang Wenbin also called on Tokyo and Canberra to stop sabotaging regional peace and stability. This comes after Australia and Japan demanded the access of international observers to Xinjiang. Meanwhile, Canberra has called for a binding dispute settlement system at the World Trade Organization. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said this is important to address economic coercion. Australia is looking to win the support of G7 nations in its dispute with China. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris says the root causes of migration in Central America will not be fixed overnight. She was talking to reporters at the end of a two-day trip to Guatemala and Mexico. Kamala Harris called for deeper engagement to address why people choose to leave their home countries. Earlier, Harris and Mexican President Andres Manuel López Obrador agreed to deepen economic ties. Harris and López Obrador also witnessed the signing of an MOU on development agencies working in Central America. The accord is aimed at reducing the number of migrants from Central American countries to the U.S. through Mexico. The meeting follows Harris's Monday visit to Guatemala, where she met President Alejandro Giatamay. In India, at least 7 people have died after a bus collided with a motor vehicle in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. Police said many others were injured in the accident. They said the speeding bus overturned and fell into a ditch in Kanpur Nagar district of Lucknow. Authorities say the passengers got trapped in the wreckage, halting the rescue process. They said the bus from Lucknow was en route to Delhi and carried laborers. Thousands of Canadians have held vigils to remember a Muslim family killed in London, Ontario. 4 people were run over by a truck in a premeditated hate crime. The victims include 3 women and a man, while the child remains hospitalized with serious injuries. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau joined the mourners as a grieving community stood united amid the crisis. Addressing the mourners in London, Trudeau vowed to take action to dismantle far-right groups.
There are no words that can undo the pain and, yes, the anger of this community. There are no words that can fix the future of that little boy who has had his future taken away. But know this: you are not alone. All Canadians mourn with you and stand with you tonight and always.
China's factory-grade prices for goods have increased at their fastest pace since September 2008. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows their producer price index surged 9% year-on-year in May. The figure beats the average of 8.2% increase forecast. Beijing's BPI had already seen the higher-than-expected year-on-year increase of 6.8% in April. The surge in the index follows recovering domestic and global demand. Meanwhile, the Consumer Price Index also posted a year-on-year increase of 1.3% in May. However, it fell short of the market estimation of 1.6%. The leaders of the European Union and the U.S. are set to commit to lifting steel tariffs before December 1st this year. The draft statement prepared for a 15th June summit in Brussels aims to avoid any further transatlantic trade disputes. The draft also commits to ending a long-running spat over subsidies to aircraft makers before the 11th of July. The U.S. imposed a record of $7.5 billion in tariffs on European goods in October 2019. EU retaliated by slapping $4 billion in tariffs on U.S. goods in November last year. A Paris court has indicted French car maker Renault for deception over a diesel emissions probe launched in 2017. The investigation followed a report pointing out high level of emissions in violation with the Euro standards. The court directed Renault to pay a deposit of 20 million euros, including 18 million for damages and fines. It also asked the group to provide a bank guarantee of 60 million euros in cash as compensation. The auto giant refuted the indictment, saying its vehicles comply with approved laws and regulations. Several car makers in Europe have come under scrutiny since the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal. European stocks have edged slightly lower as investors digest Chinese inflation data and prepare for the next reading of U.S. inflation. London's FTSE is leading the losses, dipping over 0.5%. The Pan-European Stock 600 and the CAC 40 in Paris have shed fractionally. Frankfurt's DAX and Italy's FTSE MIB have also slipped marginally. Earlier, all Asian stocks traded mixed. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.